My video card's not going bad on me right this second, but yeah, we're back. It's kind of mid sentence there. ZP, you're about to challenge Flame on something, and you probably guys completed that conversation, but nobody else heard it. So, well,
I actually held off. Just
you held
for the
off.
sake of the
Oh,
show.
wow!
Yes.
So such a pro, such a pro.
But since we are back, I guess to try and continue as seamlessly as possible, because you have the terrible job of trying to merge these two videos together afterwards. Good luck there. Yeah. You are a miracle worker. So for those who are wondering why it just went, click together seamlessly, it's because ChanManV is a pro. Now, I guess to go into the question here, Flame, you specifically said that you already have 4 people in mind that you want put on the USA team. And what I was going to say to you is that I think that the depth of talent in USA is such that I don't know if you can really decide on one person immediately here, because no matter who you mention, there's another player you can talk about that could be just as good, if not better. And you have to judge the team playing with each other chemistry-wise. You're saying that you already know that the 4 players are going to have great chemistry with each other, but I don't think you can take that for granted. I think that as committee members, isn't our job to try a few different combinations and permutations and make sure we put out the best team? Because we will have some time to prep for this. It's not like we have to immediately choose a team in 2 days. We have time to really ferret things out, be in depth, and make sure that we're not just settling for someone who could be second, third, fourth, or worse in that particular spot.
I mean, again, it's not an all-star game in my head. Like, it never was, and it never will be. I think that I even had this conversation today that you can argue that Rogue would be better if you swapped out 2 players, but you can't do that. Like, that's not how it works.
But I'm not advocating for an all-star game. I'm saying
you can't. If I have 2 players in my head that I think are the best uncontested in NA right now at their roles, 2 or 3, forget the 4. Let's just go up to 3. And I say to them, like, who do you guys want to play with? I think that that's more important than individual skill and
there's chemistry.
All these other things. Like, I think, in my opinion, as someone who watches everything, who analyzes everything, who sees the hero pools, who pays attention to what's going on generally across all the games, I think that I have a decent enough understanding of the NA players, and it's not so much all about this talent thing in my head. I think it's also cohesion, likability, coachability, learning, desire, drive, what it means to them to win, how much they want it, all these other factors. I think that anybody can have a good play for a week on a tryout. I think that we've seen a lot of teams from NA even just put together these mashed up all-star, we tried out for a week rosters, and then they go 0-6 across 2 different group stages. I think that there's a lot of that going on in the scene right now. I think it's more important to put out a team that likes each other, that wants to play with each other, that is driven to win, that has a lot to prove for themselves. And I think that I have a decent understanding currently of who I would want representing this country in a World Cup. I think that I have a good understanding of how these players talk to each other or don't talk to each other. Yep. I think that I know where the beef is between certain teams and players.
Yes, okay.
I mean, there's all these different factors. I don't think it's as cut and dry as oh, they played really well for a tryout, because this is 6 months from now, right? Mm-hmm. World Cup is going to start in the summer, so maybe we have until July for a match. So I have 2 months. Can I make a team that's going to be really good in 2 months? Is the best player right now going to be the best player in 2 months? Does the hero pool have a lot to do with that? Does attitude have a lot to do with that? Does how well they learn based off what I know or how I perceive them? I think it's all about taking responsibility for your decision. I don't think that if the community is oh my God, Flame picked these people, but then we do really well, they're not going to care. And if people are I need more transparency, then I can just be I don't think you do. And what's the worst that happens, So
the one thing that the American public loves, though, is transparency. They don't like things
going
down
giving
behind
them
closed
logic,
doors.
right? I'm giving them my
But just
reasoning.
to go to your point, one of your key points here is that certain groups of players have chemistry with each other, and I don't discount that. I just think that you have different groups of highly skilled players, and you are going to have to mix these players together in interesting ways, where I do think you have to try it out without testing it out, without committing immediately. To give you a good example, right, where you take a look at really good tanks in North America, Bezar is clearly one of the leading candidates to be a tank on Team USA because he's had consistently good progress over almost 2 years now. And clearly, he would enjoy playing with perhaps people he's played with in the past, whether it be Team Liquid or former teammates. Obviously, there'd be chemistry there. But then there's other things to look at here where you have players like Jake that have had very big ups and very big downs, where he's been a rising star. And even though he's been more on the downside recently, maybe he has a very good trial process, but he would also have different players he would like to play with. So I think that even in your theory of you think you know who's going to play there and they have players they want to play with, I think that USA competition is diverse enough that you have multiple sets of those groups, and just setting on one group early on not only might not be giving us the best USA team, but it also could very arguably be disenfranchising these players that you from the beginning are not giving a shot to begin with, when many people view them as some of the top players in the game. And I would like to at least respect that and give those players an opportunity to play.
So
okay.
here's the.
I mean, that's my response to that is okay. I'm not saying that what you're saying is wrong. I think that there's two approaches to take. There's the one of, I'm all about mitigating risk. I think that if I know a player is good and I respect them and I think that they will perform well and I can rely on them as an individual, that carries a lot more weight than some trial process. I think that if I know that I can count on this person as a human, as a adult, as someone that I would respect, then you don't want, I'm not calling anybody out. I'm not saying anything. I think it's all about taking responsibility for what you say. I mean, I don't have a problem with what you're saying. I don't disagree that there is multiple talents. I do disagree though that they are all equal in terms of how, it's all about how you value them. It's not about, it's one perception is not better than the other. You can argue that players are just as good as each other and maybe they'll be better later. But if I know that a couple players are good together, like each other, and will have a drive to want to compete amongst each other, and I know that I can firmly believe in that, then that's way more important to me than some speculation that someone might be good by the time that the tournament rolls around. I think that I have a decent enough picture of what I would want a team to look like if I were to pick from the top of all of North America or USA's talent in particular, to make a team that would look really good on paper and be able to beat every other country. So I think that mix and matching can work, but why would I go that route if I could take the safe?
Just a quick response here. One of the key appeals you're going at here is you go with, I know these guys, and because I know they're not going to flake out, this is why I want to go with them. Again, I would sort of give you the idea that we both know the Overwatch community flame. It goes all the way back 2 years. There's no way that there's not multiple groups of people that we know aren't going to flake out, where we know they're hard competitors that have been around. It's not like there's just one true group of people that are the most impeccable of character, the most undeniable, and therefore they should be the 4 people that we just immediately rally behind. There's more good people in the Overwatch community.
Yeah, sure. I mean, if you want to try out people from the ladder with no LAN experience to play for an international LAN tournament against all the best players in the world, then be my guest, I guess, is my response to that.
I think both of you guys have, good points. I mean, first off, how practical is it to really try out every single, player, not to mention even just pro? I mean, there's a ton of pro players that are good. Okay, so first off, and do a very thorough trial. I think that could be tough, versus starting with some kind of idea of what you're looking for and then kind of working from there. The second thing, though, I would say is that, with all things being equal skill and stuff like that, you take the intangibles, whether they're professional, how they're going to treat all this professional, just some of the duties that they're going to have to do being part of the team and that sort of thing. But I don't think that's necessarily always true. I mean, I think we can all probably say that there are definitely people from a skill standpoint, there are certain pros that are just better than everybody else, and we could probably pick them out. There might be two at those positions in some cases. So I wanted to pose the question to you guys. Is there an element that's similar to, say, let's just say basketball as an example? When we're talking about USA basketball team, there are definitely role players that are chosen. And it's for this kind of chemistry, for you. They're going to go and assume the position that they should be. There's not going to be egos involved there, and they know what they're supposed to do. Is there an element of that in Overwatch, given that, I mean, and the people I'm talking about, by the way, are not necessarily the best skill-wise at their position, but they just fit into a dynamic that makes the team
100%. 100%.
So there is that element in Overwatch?
That is the basis for my logic.
Well, it's also the basis for evaluating players as well, because when you put them in a team environment, the key part of looking back there would be taking a look at comms, who's really interacting with each other. And sort of to address two things, one thing you brought up, ChanManV, one going back to Flame, you talk about the idea, does everyone get in and get a tryout? Well, no. I mean, you're still talking about process that you're looking at for a team of 6, you still maybe go through no more than 50 or 60 people at the absolute max, and probably not even that much. There are people, leading candidates that are there, but there's certainly more leading candidates than 4. And also the idea of the ladder stuff is that I do think some of the very, very top people are worth exploring, because if you take a look at trends in Overwatch, it is undeniable that some of the very best players in the scene right now basically came up as ladder warriors, where they started there, impressed people with incredible play, and got on the teams, and now are some of the most dominant players of the game. I mean, you need to look no further than a player like Defran from Denmark, where Defran, that's his MO. That's where he got picked up by Selfless. And now you talk with other top hit scan players in the game, they'll tell you, yeah, Defran is one of the very best players in the game who's absolutely scary to go against. So if you're looking at all talent in the USA and trying to build this team, you don't necessarily ignore players because they're the equivalent of rookie status. I think that you still keep an eye on them. You don't perhaps value them as highly as a much more competitively proven player, but you still keep that open eye to certain respects, because this is the type of thing where, don't forget, as a committee, we would be getting data from Blizzard going, here are these players, here are their stats. Maybe we get a little bit of extra hidden data that isn't publicly available. You never know. So if there's some crazy outlier there, I wouldn't want to just dismiss it outright and say, no, this person doesn't have this experience, when we've seen that some of the very best players in Overwatch can come from that pool.
Right. Okay.
I approach everything logically, and like mitigating risk is definitely the biggest thing for me.
I agree. That is definitely a big
I do
factor.
not think that it would be intelligent to pick anybody off the ladder who has 0 LAN experience, 0 competitive experience. I think that idea is god awful. And while it could work, sure, I don't think that I need to throw a Hail Mary yet for Team USA. I think Team USA has enough good players to just pull out and say,
so here's a
you
question.
guys can make a good team, and that's it. Like, I don't.
So here's a question for you. Here's a question for you.
Wait, Chen. I have one quick follow-up that's very good. Last follow-up.
Right.
But in that case, then, do you think that the idea of the Overwatch League Combine is a bad idea? Because the entire way that was proposed was that people from top of the ladder would be tried out to be brought in and looked at for the very pinnacle of competition in the game. So what you're saying here is that the idea that people should be looked at all from ladder is not something that should happen, but I feel like there's already strong evidence that goes against that.
I mean, are you trying to compare a global 16-team league across the entire country, possibly America and Europe, to me picking the best 6 players in USA right now? Because that's a completely irrelevant argument. I think if you were trying to fill 16 teams, we would definitely have to do teams A through Z like you proposed. I don't think that applies to picking a squad that you want to roll with. If you were trying to make a combine to fill slots for Overwatch League, there would obviously be entire teams that maybe have to come from ladder, but we're not there right now. Like, why would I go to the ladder if I didn't have to? And I don't, even if there were a combine scenario, orgs wouldn't go to the combine unless they had to. So that's my take on it. I mean, you're I don't think your analogy is valid or worth anything in terms of how that was questioned. I think that
if you don't think it's valid, let me ask you this then. A player like Defran, if Defran were in the US right now, would you consider Defran for the USA committee? Or
I mean, maybe
the USA team.
But I still think he's a wild card, right? Like, where's his line experience? I don't like.
Yeah, I mean, the issue again, ZP, is just
risk.
Like the practicality of it. Like, how do you do it? Like, how are you going to consider each of these people? Because in theory, it's like, I love the open. I mean, from a conceptual standpoint, this open kind of style where literally anybody has the potential of making a team is like a great idealistic one in my eyes. But when it comes to, a committee choosing, you only have limited amount of time. You guys don't have like forever, unless can you guys be changing teams like from week to week? I mean, you want to lock in a team, right? You're going to want to lock in a team that practices for weeks in advance to this event. So I don't know if it's even possible to do that, ZP. Like, you could do it to a degree.
But to that point,
you could do it to a degree, but not let's say every single person on the ladder.
Let's make an argument right now. Yeah. We'll take AKM, for example. Let's say AKM is in USA. I think AKM is a great player.
Yeah.
And Defran is USA. But AKM I've seen perform on LAN. I think AKM's great, but maybe Dufresne has better online stats. Like I'm always going to go with AKM. So there's no point in taking risks, in my opinion, with players that are unproven in whatever regard, or when you know that there's a player there that's at a reputable skill level that you know can perform. I don't see that as a thought in my head.
However, when you take a look at the hit scan level in the US right now, that's sort of a false analogy because AKM and Dufresne are much, much closer than I think Dufresne is to some of the other USA hit scan players right now. Like I think there is a tangible gap.
I think that's true.
And the goal there in terms of looking at that would be in the US would be, is there a player where you look at the sum total of the parts, right? You're not necessarily going, oh, it's just LAN experience or it's just this. You're going, is there some part to this player, total package wise, that is highly impressive to where it maybe makes up for some of the aspects that they don't have. And it's a case where at the very least you have to be open to this. I feel like you're going into it the idea of just 4 players that you want to pick immediately. And I feel like regardless of how you do a trial process or how you open, I think you should be open to more players on the USA spectrum rather than simply locking things in.
In my opinion, right now, based on the professional scene, there are maybe 8 teams with, I don't even know. I'm just gonna make up a number. Say there's 10 NA teams right now. I think that's even way too high. There's only maybe 6 of them with actual USA players, and then half of them might like NA in general, and then half of them might be Canadian. There's maybe 2 main tanks. There's maybe 3 NA Annas. Or healers in general. There's maybe 2 Lucios. My pool doesn't go teams A through G. It goes teams A through B and maybe B and a half. I don't think that I need, if I'm going to pick 1 core or 2 core players to pick around because I know that I want that player. I know that this player, in my opinion, is the best player at his role and has the biggest impact in all of his matches or something. And I know his comms are good. I know that his attitude is good. I know his play is good. I know that his hero pool is good. I know that he views the game the way I think that it should be viewed. And I want to build around maybe that 1 player and build a roster around that to make a USA team capable of winning. Then I think that, in my opinion, is completely doable, legitimate, and does not require me going to the ladder to pick up the number 1 ranked Mercy on
but here's the thing is that you're taking one part of the campaign part, which is this possibility, right? Let's go to more established players here and go, is there a single player right now that you can pick where you think that that player is unrivaled for their particular spot? Just a thought experiment. Which player?
No, I'm not. We're not revealing.
We're not naming. We're not naming.
Oh, you're not going to name. Okay. But the reason why I say that is that I think no matter who you name, there are in most roles there's at least one other option that needs to be heavily.
I don't disagree with that, right? But that's not the point. In my opinion, that's not the point of the committee, right? The committee is to pick a team that they want to work with. It's like if you voted up 6 people that are more familiar or more comfortable with another player, then maybe that would make sense, or 3 people rather. So I think that it's all about my mentality of it would be I would just coach this team. So if I were to coach a team, I just pick players in general or I would build my team around people that I thought I could definitely work with, and then get their opinions and say, okay, us 3 are going to do this. Let's take Team USA to the top, and then we're going to pick out 3 more players, and you guys can tell me who you guys think is good, because maybe I don't know them as well as you do, or maybe you have experiences with them on LAN that I don't. And that would be how I would build a team. I wouldn't be like, oh, you might be the best tank, but maybe you're just as good as that guy, but maybe I don't want to work with that person or something, you know? Right, so I think that makes more sense, in my opinion, if that were my approach to how the whole thing would work.
But I feel like that introduces an element of favoritism to some extent.
Just gonna go back
what you really want to do here is, for me, I don't.
No, it's not.
I think there's a case.
You're mixing it up.
There might be players that. Listen, Flame, there might be players that maybe I personally dislike. There's not many, but there are. But I wouldn't discount them for a team building process, because at the end, I feel like by entering into this, you sort of have an oath to the voters to put together the best possible team, not just the best possible team that you personally want to work with.
You're playing this card like I'm the people's champion, but it's more you need to pick a team that's going to win, and you have to be responsible for that team that's going to win. Yeah, I want to take full responsibility for Team USA's failures. That's why I signed up. That's why I've been campaigning. If Team USA goes to shit, I want to be the reason why it went to shit. I don't want the tryout process to be the issue. I don't want me doing some weird thought about who's better, who might be better, who is favoritism. It's about picking a team that's going to win, and a team that I think I can lead to victory. if I don't like a player and I don't think I could lead them to victory, then okay, that's favoritism. But I got nominated to that spot to be the person who made that decision. So I'm taking responsibility for that decision. It's not about favoritism. It's about taking charge and being responsible for what you create.
Okay, in the end, guys, you guys are both saying, I mean, you guys approach it a little differently, but I feel like you guys are not totally disagreeing or given that. ZP is just saying have every player open to the selection process, and Flame, you're saying the committee is accountable for making a team that's going to represent the country. And both of you guys are right. I mean, you guys are totally right. So just
there's no doubt that the team is committed. I mean, your name is on the committee. No matter what team you pick, it doesn't matter what process you go. If you go through an open process and the team gets wrecked,
no, but there's a difference.
But if you go through the open process and the team gets wrecked, maybe I'd rather pick the team myself and just take the full blame for it, as opposed to just being like, oh, well, we tried these people out and
absolutely
I didn't really feel as committed about it. And I think that maybe we could have swapped out some players. Like, no, I want a team that I personally would be proud of to, like,
oh my God,
get going.
If the economy goes to shit for a president due to factors outside of his control, like people are going to go,
if you guys are on the committee together, I think I'm going to scream.
No, but how is that? How is that comparable? Goodness. It would be like the equivalent of if I wrote the entire policy myself and then the economy went to shit.
Regardless, whoever has their name on the ship gets the blame. Like, I don't think there's an extra level of blame.
No, so I mean, people will have scapegoats if they, are trying to say, let's just say the committee decides to take the people's vote. I mean, they could do that. They could set up their own voting system and have the people vote which 6 guys they want. Yeah, they signed the thing at the end.
Twitch chat vote. We could just be like, everyone type !1 for X player. Yeah, I mean, and we just the process. Like, oh, well, Twitch picked it. I didn't do it. Like, no, I'd rather.
But there's a different level of accountability versus that process versus you're picking the team. The 3 of you guys pick the team, and it might not be popular, but you're taking that chance PR wise. It could blow up in your face. Or you could be the hero that we all want, right? The national hero, or the 3 heroes that we all want. So, I totally understand both sides of it. Again, it's just a different way of trying to come up with the best team, or the team that, it doesn't have to necessarily be the best team. It's just the team that the 3 people feel will be the best team that has the best chance of winning the World Cup. So let me pose this question to you guys. So let's say you were Team France, okay? And the most obvious thing with is Team Rogue's already together and they're all French, and they've all been playing together. So is the default route? I'll take both of y'all's opinions on this. Would you take Team Rogue to represent France by default just because of all that experience?
Mm-hmm.
So Flame, I pretty much know your answer.
It's a yes. It's a yes.
All right, ZP.
Team Rogue is something you probably have to take in the France's case, because unlike the US, where any major USA team is a merger team where you don't have a full US team that's also dominant, Rogue is this special case where they're all French, they're all incredibly dominant, and they're all ready to go. So you don't have the option of taking a Rogue in the US, but if you're in France, then throwing Rogue in as your main team makes all the sense in the world.
But should they go through the process of finding ladder players and all that stuff too, or not?
Well, no, because again, you don't have it's not an analogous situation to the USA at all, ChanManV, where the US does not have a power team that is dominant in the region, number 1 undisputed. Any US team is going to have to be a blend of different teams, which means that you have more incentive to look for different pieces.
Right, let's make it spicy. We'll make it spicy. Get off France. Let's go to Sweden.
Okay, Sweden. All right.
Not even Sweden knows where this is going, Flame.
Okay.
Let's go.
All right, Sweden. That's a good example. That's something in between, right? What do we do there?
Well, Sweden is its own can of worms, right? Where if you go by what Tavik wants on Twitter, Tavik wants to just send the entire Misfits team.
Right.
But then you have extremely strong players that are very arguably much stronger than their counterparts on Misfits that also want to get in and play. You have your Chips, your Coco, and then of course you have the wild card of IDDQD, who's very likely to be on the committee in terms of helping decide all of this. Sure. So, I mean, there's multiple ways Sweden could go down, and I don't know. It can be interesting to watch, because I do feel like it could be just a spicy situation.
Can you be a player and a committee member?
In Sweden, yes.
Oh my!
Everywhere you can actually.
I wonder if that's considered a conflict of interest there. I feel like you shouldn't, by the way. I feel like if you're on the committee, you should not be able to play. My opinion, though.
You have to realize, though, they had to make that compromise because unlike the US, where you do have a rather big bench of analysts, coaches, casters, etc., where you could go with the non-player committee, almost every other country doesn't have that option, right? Where you had to go to players to fill out your 10 slots, which means that it would be a little bit rough to the players to go, actually, because you're on the committee, you can't play. But we also nominated you for the committee because you're one of the most notable players in your region. It's a pretty difficult situation. So I understand why it had to be done that way.
I guess the other two, you could have said, I didn't vote. The other two guys voted me in. So that'd be okay in that regard. So did we really answer the question yet here?
No,
so,
I mean, from my perspective, there's two arguments, right? There's the argument of their synergy will be better. And then there's the argument of there's just better players out there than the current Misfits roster. I think that you can definitely make a case for Chips and Coco. 100% you can make a case for Chips and Coco. You can definitely make a case for maybe IDDQD, depending on how good he is at the time, or whatever. Mendo even. There's a lot of players in Sweden.
So it's just a matter of circumstance that we're talking about, especially.
Yeah, but then it goes back to the same question that I think is back to the US is, do you go off synergy and coachability and ease of getting to the team and stuff like that, or do you go for the skill? And I think
But so here's the thing, though, Flame, is that the U.S. has to pull a rabbit out of its hat in really making a team stronger than the sum of its parts. Because if you look at the U.S., not that there's a full 6-player USA team to begin with right now, but the teams that come closest, they can't beat Rogue in a straight one-on-one right now.
Maybe in 6 months, though, they could.
Maybe they could, but that's a lot of faith here compared to the idea of really trying to unturn every.
So are you saying that the Team USA is going to lose no matter what to France right now?
That isn't what I'm saying. If they go with your plan,
where's the USA
if they go with your plan,
the USAD is going to be sponsored after this.
What I'm saying here is, like, from your plan, it's a very good shot. If you go for a plan that tries to extract the most talent out of the USA roster, then perhaps you do have a shot of going and upsetting the Frances and Koreas of the world.
I see that. I see the logic there too. Sure, I see it. But regardless of who you put together, it's going to be a new entity. It doesn't even matter. Like if it's known entities with the U.S. pro players, it's still going to be a new entity. So that there's always going to be a possibility.
But then you would get the team that you want to coach.
Sure. Okay, man. You guys, oh man, I can't imagine if I was the third member of this committee right now. I'd be hard pressed to have to figure out who's going to be or what we're going to decide to do here. But let's talk about that. This is you guys have spoke about, what you guys would want to do, but you guys are going to have to work as a team too, even as a committee. So, how do you see this going? Is this just going to be voting on this 2-1 or just, basically best of 3 kind of votes or on certain aspects of it? Or how do you see this working?
I mean, personally, if everyone disagrees with me, I'm not going to stop them, right? Like, I'm not going to argue. If people think that the team is bad, I'll just say it, or like my team is bad or something, or my ideas are bad, then I'll just go with the majority. But it'll be interesting to see who takes the accountability. I think at the end of the day, I think that accountability is a big part of it. If the goal of the committee is to pick 6 players and just let them do their thing and hope that they're good by the time World Cup comes around and they figure it out themselves, and like that's one way to go about it, right?
Well, isn't it? I mean, it's a joint process, so it's not literally, hey guys, you come up with your 6, you come up with your 6 and you come up with your 6, and we'll come and then we'll see like how we can mix and match and do a union of all these things. It's not necessarily that. I mean, you can come up with a process. And I think ZP is more in the line of that, kind of coming up with this general process of figuring out how we even get the list of 6 people as a collective threesome versus just coming up with our own lists and seeing how those.
No. There's definitely room for compromise. It's just a matter of I think it's if everything goes south. Obviously, I think it would be worse if nobody was responsible.
Oh, of course.
Flame, Flame, the thing is, you're obsessed with this idea of taking responsibility. Here's how accountability works in this case. Anyone's name that's on the committee is responsible. That's just how it goes.
Yeah.
And that is part of what we take on by getting voted in potentially, is that we're responsible. And that's why for me, I don't want to leave any stone unturned. I don't want to commit early. I want to look at the very best players in the region and put together the best team from that. I don't want to close my mind to possibilities that could be better, because teams like Korea, teams like France are going to be very tough. And it's important that we put together the very best team to deal with that.
Yeah, but who's gonna take control of this team is my question. This is like a whole other discussion, but who's in charge of making this team better, or coaching them, or watching VODs with them, or managing them?
as part of the committee, assigning a coach too?
Like
or,
the committee, I would say
is the 3-man team like the coach too? I don't
exactly. I don't know. That's another question.
I figure you guys would assign a coach too.
Yeah, as far as that goes, I mean, for me, I even said in the beginning that my general idea was you bring in other experts. Like, for example, you take a look at a guy like Kai Kai. Kai Kai is extremely invested in the USA winning. So even if Kai Kai isn't voted onto the committee, and I would want to bring him in to help advise and help out with all the processes of picking a team and figuring out what is going to make for the best team overall.
So are you guys anticipating, I forget what they said with rosters. Does it have to be 6-man, or can you have eight on a team? Just have bench.
I hope it's like 7 at least, but I have no idea.
It's 6 with the committee members as emergency subs.
Oh, even more reason why to have possible players, I guess. Okay. Well, I think we talked through a lot of this. And again, both of these guys, are on the ballots. So maybe last statements from each of you guys, just to lobby your votes, get the people at least watching to use one of their 3 votes on you. ZP, I'll have you go first.
All right. Well, just in conclusion to all of this, first of all, you do get 3 votes, so you can vote for everyone that is on here. That is one.
Except for me.
Yeah, aside from ChanManV. But as far as it goes, for me, my end goal at the end of the day is to maximize the chances of the US getting gold. Simple as that. And I feel like to do that, you really do have to open your mind to other possibilities that are around, because the US, unlike other countries, cannot simply pull together a very easy super team. You're going to have to find a magic combination that is not obvious. And I think we can do that. I do believe that the talent is here in the US to make a strong competitive run, but you are going to need to be open, find the best combinations of players, and go from there. And I think there's a lot of talent in the US scene, but if you just tunnel vision on one thing, I don't think it's going to happen.
All right, Flame, last statements, last campaigning.
I am sure that I can create a team of 6 players.
Oh my gosh.
That will and can compete on the level required to win the World Cup. And I am not, I have no doubts in my mind that there is a roster out there that is good enough to make all those goals or ends meet.
Okay, we're going to conclude World Cup Committee, but definitely excited to see how all of them pan out, and it's going to move on to the next stages, which will be a long process. It's going to be a long process of figuring out what the teams will be, but I like the decision that Blizzard made to do this committee system, and it's we're talking about it a lot already, so kudos to them for at least putting this together, and we'll see how what the end results are, and how who ends up winning, and just who again is going to be getting the blame or all that stuff for or actually taking the credit for winning and getting the blame for not winning. Okay, so I want to give a shout out to a bunch of the folks that are listening on iTunes. For those of you that didn't know, the overview is available on a bunch of audio channels: iTunes, Google Play, and SoundCloud. And folks on iTunes, it really helps out whenever they leave ratings for us, especially 5-star ratings. And I want to give a shout out to White Rose C for doing that. And if you want to help out the show and help people find the overview by searching for Overwatch, you can just go to iTunes. It takes like a minute. Just go there, leave us a nice rating, and we'd really appreciate it. All right, we've got news next. Lots and lots of news that we didn't get a chance to talk about last week. So some of this will be old, some of this will be new. It's just going to be a mixture of all of it, so taking that into account. Okay, so first off, it was announced maybe 2 days ago that a new team has been put together, and Flame's actually part of this team. And it's not like your traditional team. It's not like your normal professional team. It's actually a educational / I would say content team called Team Valfard. I don't know how to pronounce it exactly because there's like Valfard. Is it Swedish? It's Swedish. It's Swedish, and it's kind of a mixture of a scrim team / content making team / I don't know. You describe it, Flame. Flame is one of the analysts that are on this team.
Well, so I'm like taking a very, very back seat right now.
Okay.
But
okay.
I guess the way Mendo approached me was he said, "Oh, we're gonna make a stream team and we're gonna do a lot of content." I think because a lot of them are in like quote unquote contract jail.
Yeah,
where they're still stuck on orgs, but they can't leave, and there's buyouts, but no one's buying out because Overwatch League is soon. So they more or less just want to stay competitive and put out like obviously educational style content, but they're not like focusing super a lot on it. It's more streaming scrims with comms, which never happens. I think a lot of teams don't ever do that. And then also releasing, they have a VOD person that's like watching the overhead and releasing that as well. And then obviously Harsha and I think it's Peak are doing reviews on their own streams. So like all 6 players are streaming their point of view. So you can watch like a Anna, you can watch the Lucio, you can watch the Tracer, see what they're doing if you're trying to get some sort of insight. And I think it's more or less Mendo just wants to like stay on top of his game. He wants to stay in the public eye. He wants something to do that's meaningful more so than just streaming ranked. And I think that this was his solution to the problem. And I think it's a really good idea.
Yeah. So is it more accurate to call it Mendo and Friends, the way you phrased it there?
Well, it was, I think what happened, and I might be wrong, I don't want to like start Mendo beef as everyone calls it now, is I think what happened was the rosters came out for the committees and it kind of like lit a fire under him that he wasn't on it. So he's like going all out on this, and like it's like his little project. I think everyone's still going with it. I think like he obviously has a lot of support and a lot of players obviously respect him. So I think it's a lot of, he just really wants something that is his and something that he can be proud of, and maybe like just something that people will get behind and associate him with in like a very positive light.
Yeah. No, I think conceptually it's a really, really good idea. Just having, again, just more educational content, especially for the pro scene. There's a lot of people that play Overwatch and not only have they maybe they've seen Overwatch, they just still don't quite understand what's going on just with all the casting going on and just a lot of the cam work too. So I think this kind of content might be a way to ease into that a bit, as well as just high level analysis too, possibly, you know, from just a team that's dedicated to doing that too. And on top of that, just the streams, you know, having some kind of frame to a stream is nice, you know, instead of just having, just laddering guys today. Just laddering, I'm just playing this hero today. It's kind of a bit more interesting.
So one thing I do think is going to be a bit of a problem for the team, though, is the idea that the way it's stated is it's a scrim team, right? But the idea is that the scrims they do, it's all public content and all the rest. Well, if I'm a team that's prepping for a match against another team in 2 days, I don't necessarily want that team to be able to go and look at my scrim results with Mendo's team, because all those are going to be public. So I do think that there's going to be some degree of trouble for them in getting really high-end scrims when you're getting close to bigger tournaments, where right now where there's not as much immediately available, I think teams are pretty chill with it to go, yeah, okay, we'll scrim, whatever. But when you get close to something that's bigger, or say you're doing something like a Carbon series where you know you're going up against a certain team on the very next day, I don't think that it's going to be really easy for them to get opponents, just because as the team that's scrimming them, why would you want to show your hand?
Well, yeah, I mean, that's always been a problem, I think, since Overwatch started. I don't think that's new. It's just most teams don't stream scrims for that reason. There's also the problem of comms. I mean, even for your tryout idea, whatever, like comms in general are very touchy to stream, just because some players will say things that maybe aren't politically correct or are like overly angry or violent for whatever reason, just because they're in the heat of the moment of the game. So it's definitely a risk. I think it definitely affects the outcome of their scrims and all that other stuff. But I don't know, like they're finding opponents. I think people are happy to help them. I don't think that they're like petitioning that they're like a tier 1 team. So like if you're a tier 2 team and you get the opportunity to scrim against Mendo and Vonathil, I think you'll take it because maybe you have a hard time getting good opponents. But it's just more or less them trying. I mean, it's obviously hard, but I think the goal too is like they're going to join tournaments and then donate all the money, because obviously they're not allowed to like technically win under someone else's banner.
Okay. I mean, at the very least, they do get to donate for a good cause if they win. So there is that. I'm actually surprised that their contracts allow them to play on 18 period, because I actually think they could get into trouble there just from a legal perspective. Because if you stop and think about it, right, Flame, where they're on this team, but then say, for example, the team is doing well, and then they're going up against Cloud9 in a tournament, and then they knock Cloud9 out of the tournament. From Cloud9's perspective, they have to look at that and, we're paying Mendo right now an active salary. He's our guy, and he just knocked our team out of the tournament.
Yeah, I mean,
I don't know if they're actually going to be allowed to play in the tournaments now that I think about it from that perspective, because why would you let your own contracted talent potentially take down your current team?
I mean, logistically, I agree with you. Realistically, I don't see them beating Fnatic or C9, but it's definitely a valid concern. It's just...
for me, with this project, the play or the focus really shouldn't be about the team aspect of it, and just like how they perform in events and things like that. I think the real interesting part is the content that can be created from it. So, if Mendo's serious about this and wants to do it, he should start a website, Overwatch Academy type of stuff, like that, like obviously that's taken, but something like that, right? Where it's like I wouldn't say a coaching site, but it's something of that sort, an educational website that has, this level of analysis and videos and whatever articles. That would be great. I think that would be a great play for this type of thing. More so than all the complexity that you just talked about. There's weirdness that people are signed on different teams, and then they're doing, they're gonna have the troubles of trying to figure that out. Okay, next up on the news, we've got the Team Envy roster has announced that they not only added Lou, but they added Effect too as subs for a DPS. So the Envious roster now consists of 7 people. Haven't gotten a chance to see Effect play too much, or at least I don't remember seeing him play too much. But what do you guys think of this addition?
It's one of those things where we'll have to see. I mean, obviously they're bringing in Effect for projectile DPS, and the question is he going to be able to play at the level that Envy needs, where most teams right now that are near the top have a player that is just absolutely killing on projectile DPS. Where you take a look at a team like Rogue, part of the reason for their dominance is that you had a player, not only do you have players like Soon that are incredible, but you had a player like Nico that went to the hyperbolic time chamber and became a world-beating Genji in the shadows when he wasn't playing. So, I mean, the question is for Envy, are they going to get that from Effect? The other question here, too, is that is Louis a good fit for the roster? Is he what they needed? And I'm still in between on that. Like, I like Louis personally. I'm just not sure if he was the absolute right move for Envy to pull the trigger on.
Flame?
I mean, on the topic of Louis, his personality is generally pretty polarizing, I would say. I mean, I've known him since season 1, and we've played together a lot, but he's, I don't know what the word is. He's not, in ladder anyway, not in a pro setting. He's definitely disagreeable, but I think that putting him on Envious is like, he's not going to argue with them, like you're not going to get into an argument with Chips and Coco about game understanding and stuff like that. So I think for him, it's a really good fit. For them, I mean, I don't know how many better players off ladder you can realistically get. I mean, Louis like solo queued his way up to like top 5 or top 10 probably like every single season since season 1. So individually, he's very talented. He definitely understands the game. His aim is fine. He's very good at a multitude of heroes. But in terms of, is it what they need? I don't know, but I don't know that there was like somebody better to get up, especially if Harry is going to be playing this new role. I mean, off ladder, I like without breaking someone else's contract or pulling someone off another team, I don't know realistically how much better of a player they could have gotten from the NA scene.
Okay.
But that's just my take. And on Effect, I mean, Effect's just good. Everyone knows he's good. He's like, he's very well known in the Korean scene. He didn't really have too much success, but he's definitely on everyone. He was definitely on everybody's radar before this.
I will note one thing is that you kind of glossed over it, but saying, could they have broken someone's contract? I do think that Envy is one of the few orgs that can go out of their way money-wise to break contracts of other players if they felt it was necessary. Whether they needed to in this case or not is a different story, but it is worth knowing that is a real option for Envy where they're not necessarily bound by the common constraints of, oh, that guy's contracted, I guess I can't steal him. It's like, no, Hastro can bust out the pocketbook if it's necessary. So,
I mean, people were criticizing, right? Like, you get the Genji, or the Genji Pharah player. There's not really that many left. I mean, I'm assuming Seagull's buyout's pretty high. I would say Tailspin already had his shot. I realistically don't know how many other players too, though, I guess is where I was going more with that. Maybe from Europe, you could pick up somebody. I'm not sure on the Euro pub scene, but.
Yeah, true. All right, we'll see how they do in Apex with that roster. Some bit of news also from Korea is that Lunatic High dropped Munchkin and Claris And Laser Kittens end up picking up the two of them together. So yeah, let's talk about that. I think Lunatic High dropped them because they said there was some, I guess issues with maybe character issues or just things like that. And Laserkins obviously doesn't have a problem with that, and we've seen that before in the past too, with some players being dropped and picked up. But what do you guys think about these two?
I just want to actually comment on Alicus for a second and just really compliment him for being so active in the Overwatch scene. I mean, you talk about owners that are very much into it and looking for any way to bring their team up. You would find it difficult to find any owner more active and engaged than Alicus right now, where even in the aftermath where Internet Hulk leaves Envy, there is a brief moment where Alicus immediately jumps on and goes, Hulk, actually, I'd like to see what you do for Laserkins. Hulk ends up going the rogue, but the point is that you got to like Laserkin's future as an org when Alicus is this on top of things where he just immediately pounces on opportunities.
Well, the contrary to that actually is that, I mean, not to shut on Alicus or anything, but he definitely is doing things on his own volition. And not necessarily informing his players all the time of what's going on. Like, I know for a fact that certain players on that team were not aware of Dennis being picked up or stuff along those lines. He was definitely scouting those two players as soon as the news came out. I think even before Lunatic High dropped them, he was in talks with them because he knew that it was probably not going to work out. So like the story with Munchkin's actually kind of, I don't know what the word is. It wouldn't be so bad if it were in NA, but I think it's obviously a lot worse over there, is that he was actually smurfing on his own account, or like he was smurfing on an account that wasn't his, like just BMing all the pro Korean players on ladder and just like pretending that it wasn't him. But then like he would also refer to that alter ego of his and talk about how bad of a person that guy was. And then eventually it got exposed that it was him, and he had denied it the entire time. He always pretended that it was somebody that he knew, but it wasn't him. And then when he got picked up, it like came out, and he was like, "Yeah, it was me. I'm sorry." And I mean, there's like a lot of rules against account sharing because they're always like bound to your, like, I guess your Korean equivalent of the social security number.
Mm-hmm, right.
So it's like actually a big deal, and they do ban players from it regularly. So he was obviously at fault there.
What if he just likes to talk to himself? I mean, it's okay, right?
It's hard for me to have a really informed opinion on that sort of stuff because, frankly, I don't understand all the intricacies to some of the things that come up as Korean drama and how serious it may be. Where, I mean, just for example, there was a recent drama where AKM, I guess, it doesn't like spicy food. So he posted a picture of like kimchi and just him grimacing going, no, don't want it. And that even turned into like some big thing where people are saying, well, AKM, why do you dislike our food? So I don't know. I can't really offer too much on the Munchkin scenario because I just don't have enough experience in evaluating the meltdowns that have happened over players that have broke social norms that aren't a big deal in the US, but are clearly a very big deal in Korea.
Yeah, so maybe Laserkins will be able to, just take advantage of just the fact that, Lunatic High dropped those two players. And it can only help, right? I think those two players definitely help the roster. All right, next up we've got Apex, just a little bit of thing. Apex allowing one sub now during series. And have we actually seen it yet? I don't know if we've seen them.
They swapped in Kaiser on Friday.
Did they? Okay, I didn't even notice
that. Because they were down 2-0. But...
Oh, you're right. Yeah, I totally forgot about that. Yeah, what do you guys think of that? Just being able to, swap folks in between series. Is this getting closer to what we were envisioning for Overwatch?
I think it's a positive element. I think you look at any traditional sport, you clearly have swaps. You don't just have one active playing roster as much as certain NBA teams try in the playoffs where you put LeBron James in for like 40 minutes. But overall, I do like the idea of swapping out players on a team. In fact, my ideal world would probably go far deeper than it's ever likely to go, where I think it'd be cool if you had 7 players in the booth and then you could actually swap off mid-game where maybe you have then you decide who on your team is going to be this hyper specialist, right? Maybe you have a guy who's just incredibly good at Widow and all you do is you swap him in to play Widow on particular points and then you swap him back out for someone else. Like there's really cool ideas that can be done with swapping. I don't think you'll ever get to the point of in-game swapping to that extent, but I do like the fact that it makes map strategy more important. It makes compositions more important, and it lets players specialize and make a name for themselves. So I'm all for player swapping in whatever format it ends up coming in.
Mm-hmm. Okay. Yeah, I think I generally agree with that. I don't know if I'd love just like in-game swapping quite like that, just because I don't know. I just like it contained at least within the game, and having players be put into very difficult situations at times, based on their player. But generally, like between series, I'm definitely all for that. Okay, EG signs an Overwatch team, so Eastwind is now Team Evil Geniuses. What do you think about this? And just Eastwind in general, were they an up and coming team, or what were your thoughts on it?
I think that it's a much better signing post last monthly melee than it probably could have been if things had gone a different way. So this is where now that's all said and signed. I could say that we knew that they would be signed by EG way before because they talked to us about invites, all the rest, and that said, actually don't announce this as EG. It's not coming out here. And then I remember looking at Eastwind's tournament history, and it wasn't something that was particularly beefy. They really didn't have too many accomplishments to their name. And I remember thinking EG could be making a mistake here. And what if they go into this monthly melee and they get blown away, or they don't even qualify because they go through qualifiers? Right. But to Eastwind's credit, they not only got through qualifiers, they had a pretty good showing in the actual melee tournament itself. So it does turn out to be a very good signing for EG. I think it was a bit of a gamble based on what Eastwind had done prior to getting signed, but the gamble paid off, and EG now has a team that is better than many other orgs could say that they have in Overwatch. So kudos to them.
Yeah, I agree with that. I mean, I don't really have anything else to add to that. I think a lot of their players definitely looked very good on individual levels as well as like a team shot calling perspective. I mean, they're serious about what they're doing. They have a house already. They had a house before they even announced the org signing, I'm pretty sure. So it's good for them. I think that it's just a positive experience for everybody involved. I think that they have a bright future, at least in some perspective.
Yeah, it's good to see Evil Geniuses back too, or just in this space. Evil Genius has a long record of esports history in different games. It'd be great to see them in Overwatch. All right, let's talk about Apex Season 3, which again is going on right now. Started last week, and started off with just the two finalists playing in back-to-back games. We had Lunatic High versus Kongdu Panthera, and spoilers in case you guys haven't seen it yet. Lunatic High ended up winning 3-2, but that was after falling behind 2-0 that they ended up reverse sweeping there. What'd you guys think about that series? Anything stand out? I mean, I knew it would be a pretty competitive series, but anything particular stand out to you guys worth commenting on?
I think in general, one thing that's always worth noting is that anytime you have a reverse sweep, there's always interesting team dynamics to look at there, right? Where you have one team that's well coached enough not to just completely tilt off the face of the world, and they're able to bring it back, versus the other side where you sort of have the issue of a team that's not able to finish things out. So anytime you have that, I think I generally give more credit to the team that comes back rather than saying that the other team threw. So for me, I think it's just an example that you do have some very well coached teams out in Korea right now.
Yeah, I think it's definitely a testament to Lunatic High's what's the word?
Resolve.
I'm like drawing a blank. No. Endurance. But on that same note, Kongdu Panthera threw away probably one of the easiest 3-0s of their lives. So once you do that, I think it was I don't want to say it's over for them, but they picked some maps that I think they shouldn't have picked at the end of the day. They're the scenario where they win Volskaya was pretty in their face and they didn't capitalize on it. That might have broken them mentally or something, but again, that goes back to Lunatic High just being they just persevere. They never gave up. They never looked like they were out, and they can go the 5 games, which I think goes back to that 7-man roster. I think it would be really smart if you just picked up another really good shot caller, maybe similar but a little different than the one that was in the game already, because I think that's the turning point for a lot of these teams is that one player just eventually gets worn down. And I think that's having a huge impact on the outcome of a lot of these matches where eventually you wind up in these scenarios where 3 games into the 5-game series, your shot caller maybe gets demoralized or starts losing faith or confidence in himself. And I think that's when you should start swapping in new players. But I think that's what happened. I think KDP just got ran down, worn out.
Well, the idea of fatigue is something that's interesting in general. Where is that a real thing? Because I feel like there's not a lot of research there one way or another, where I don't think teams are necessarily looking at from the perspective of, actually this player gets winded. It's very well documented in other sports, right? Where there's a physical element where you look at baseball, you had the element of pitch counts developed for pitchers going, we actually know that this guy turns into a pile of shit exactly after pitch 82. 82 pitches and he's done. you don't really have a good way of judging that for a game like Overwatch or really any esport, but there's very likely the idea that there could be a mental fatigue element that's worth exploring and figuring that out.
I think there is. I mean, and you can tell by just, looking at results. If there is a pattern to the results and, teams in longer series are losing them very, very consistently, I think that's enough data to say that it probably is an issue. So, yeah, I think there is. I think that having 2 shot callers, that's a good idea. Just having, 2 people on the team that can kind of switch roles. I never really thought about the shot calling being the most mentally taxing, but totally makes sense, obviously. And maybe a lot of these teams would benefit if they did have backups.
The thing about switching people too is that I think you can make arguments for other things too, right? Where what are human beings if nothing else but adaptable? Where if you get the same look thrown at you over and over again, you start getting used to it. But players have different styles, even among the very best of the game. So maybe you actually have 2 incredibly strong Genjis on your team, but they have different styles to where maybe you're finally starting to adapt to a guy that's doing really well by map 2, but then you put in another guy who's a slightly different style and you're actually not adapting to it well at all. Like, these are all cool ideas for where things like swapping could go and just trying to analyze games and figure out what is actually causing teams to win and lose.
Yeah, I guess my logic, or the way I approach it, or the way I would approach it, is like you had 2 Lucios or 2 Annas or whatever is doing your main shot calling, and maybe that person sitting in the audience and you're saying, okay, I know why my team is losing. Like, I'm analytically watching this match and I understand what they're doing that we're doing wrong. Mm-hmm. And then you just, all right, like, you're out, like, tap them in. And then you just start swapping your strategies based on what you've seen. And you could do so much with that. Like, that would almost be cheating, in my opinion.
Yeah, it almost is cheating.
But, like, it's not, right? Like, that's what you can do that right now.
It's allowed.
And someone's going to do it. Someone will eventually do it and abuse it. But obviously it requires, like, 2 specific players and people that are good at that in particular.
Yeah, the mental game is so huge. Just the different voice, just changes the confidence level of the entire team. Just some freshness of it, and that can swing series, as we've seen in Overwatch already. GP, you were gonna say something before I?
Oh no.
Okay, cool. The next match we saw another finalist in it with Runaway versus a Africa Blue. But we didn't quite see the same type of results that we're used to seeing, at least in Season 2 for Runaway. Shouldn't have been, I guess, that surprising, given that Runner was saying that, hey, guys, don't expect the same type of results that you saw from us, in Season 2, just because, there's a lot going on right now. And so, sure enough, AFPB ended up winning 3-0, just swept Runaway there. Anything stand out there, given that Runaway, literally coming off of a finals for Season 2, and it was, 2 weeks ago, 3 weeks ago? It wasn't even that long ago. And we're seeing a pretty drastic change here. AFP is a good team. It's just, we would have expected Runaway to be, at least the old Runaway, to beat AFP. What do you guys think?
Players were sick was the story that they went with. I don't know, whatever. I thought that they were getting a sponsor, so maybe there's like a lot of internal, I don't know. This is probably one of the bigger things that I think is bizarre about Apex, is that it could have been the same story in the other finals. Like, Lunatic High realistically could have lost 3-0. I think a lot of it has to do with how stressed you are as a team, and like, you want that time off. I don't know if this is like a mental thing or I'm overanalyzing it, but like, if you're Runaway and Lunatic High, you just played your like games of your life for Season 2, and it was only 3 weeks ago. So like, maybe you wanted that time to cool down because you were the only 2 teams really playing, maybe out of like, or 4, whatever. I think they could have both been 3-0'd.
I think there's something more base really at work here, though, is the idea that when you are the king, it's difficult to stay on top, or when you're near the top. There's really good examples of this across Overwatch competition where a team surprises you, gets on top, and is having better results than expected, and then people go, oh, actually, we're going to look into this team and look into what they do well and what they don't do well, and we're going to counterplan around this. Like, in the USA scene, you've seen that with Selfless, where Selfless has gotten somewhat more challenged in recent times because people actually know what's coming. They know that, oh, we actually have to deal with Fran. We have to get in his face. They know what they can expect here. Or even a team like Rogue that after not playing for a while, they come back and they're world beaters, right? Where they're just crushing everyone. They get taken to the absolute limit by Selfless. So I think that once there's enough game tape on you as a team, especially if you've had great success, And especially in Apex, where you do have better coaching on the average than what you get in the States, I think that it's unreasonable to expect a team to really stay fully on top for an extended stretch where you will have to reinvent yourself multiple times because people get used to what you're doing. I also think that makes Rogue a very interesting story to watch in Apex, where Rogue has not been super adaptable, right? Where Rogue basically has their dive comp that they run very well. They don't like getting away from it. Will Rogue be forced to switch things up? Will they have a downturn in the middle of an Apex as teams get used to them? Maybe. There's a good chance of it. We'll just have to see.
Yeah, I think, I mean, to build off that too, I was just going to say, like, you have Runaway, who everyone knew what the weakness was, right? Like, everyone knew that Runners Lucio was having really, really bad time during the finals, but they were on old patch during the finals, like really old. They probably missed like a good month worth of Overwatch. So there's like the practice element. There's the fact that Lucio got infinitely harder, probably like one of the higher skill cap heroes in the game right now. And one of maybe their weakest players is on it. So it definitely impact, like just from a Runaway perspective, that was definitely a problem for them, I would imagine. And then, yeah, I mean, back to the Lunatic High stuff, like people know what weaknesses are there for Lunatic High. And you almost saw Kung Pantera just 3-0 them quickly.
I do want to note one thing here, and it's a slight tangent, but I do love that the Lucio changes have made some players worse and some players better. And I think it's a good time to show out for FPS royalty and someone like Rafa, where you take a look at Team Liquid's recent performances. Rafa has actually come out and you're just like, wait, what? Because not only is he staying alive in situations where he would die post-patch because he has really good use of his boops, but he also has times where he just outduels people that it wasn't possible before the damage buff. So it is kind of cool that the Lucio changes have made some players better, some players worse.
No, it's Lucio changes. I hard
the hero's
to find
insane
somebody.
now. It's actually ridiculous.
Yeah, I mean, fantastic change. Like I don't think there's very many people that are arguing about it at this point. And you know, it was they could have taken.
It was 100% pick rate, right? He's still 100% pick rate.
He's still is.
He's 100% pick rated now. Like Wins can tweet on the cart while soloing your Tracer at the same time. So you know, phone in one hand, mouse in the other. Killing your Tracer feels good, man. The life of a Lucio in 2017.
The life of Genji right now is about, I don't know, once people realize it's so hard now playing Genji, you dash in, you just get thrown. You're like, all right, Lucio, let's a Lucio.
Get away from me. That's right.
Genji has a chronic case of tinnitus right now, at least when he tries to play.
Well, we had a couple other matches that happened this morning. Again, we're going to save those for next week. But if you want to check out Meta Athena and LW Blue playing Conbox and BK Stars, you can go to OGN Global's Twitch channel and check that out. One thing I'll mention is that it is weird not hearing Monty and Doa casting the matches, I have to say. I've had to get used to it a little bit, but I'm getting used to it now after about 3 matches. How do you think they're doing so far, just casting?
Casting wise, when I watch a lot of the Apex stuff, honestly, I always go for practice casting because it's how you stay prepped and prepared for some of that stuff. So a lot of times I'm not actually listening to the casting, so I can't actually give too much feedback there one way or another. So
what you're saying is you're sitting on Flame's Discord and casting the whole time. Is that what you're saying?
To some extent, although we haven't done that for Apex. It's really
like 5 o'clock in the morning.
Yeah, I was gonna say getting up at 5 a.m. is if I usually just go to the VOD, and just look at it, because the thing is for casting practice, it's very beneficial in most cases to just sit there and really actively involve yourself, because that gives you a much better understanding than simply listening. You're much more likely to zone out if you're just listening to a VOD, even when it comes to prep. So I think as a caster, practice casting is very important.
I didn't watch today, but I watched last week. I thought that they did really good, or I was pleasantly surprised, I guess. I mean, I didn't know what to expect because I didn't really watch most of the other stuff, like the Challenger series. I think that some of them had done Challengers before, but I thought Smithy and Achilleos killed it as far as what I didn't have any expectations, and I was pretty satisfied and pleased with what they were saying, and I thought it was a lot better than I anticipated. I definitely approved. I just missed the I get it from Doa every time they said it. So right. That was my only gripe.
Good stuff. All right, well, guys, why don't we wrap up? We didn't really have any questions today. Maybe we take 1 or 2 questions from chat. I guess we normally do that. Why don't we take 1 or 2 questions from chat, and then we'll call it a day. Any questions you guys want? Real quick, guys. And if you want to email them, we haven't had any emails in the last few weeks, so I'd encourage you guys to email them to the overview at chanmanv.tv, and we'll definitely try to get to them. Actually, let me double check. Maybe I lied. Let's see. Any questions? Give you guys like maybe here he goes. Oh, actually, yeah, I forgot about this bit of news. Thoughts on Denial dropping their Overwatch roster?
Oh, it's very simple. From all that we heard from the internals is that Denial was not paying them at a level that an Overwatch team needs to be played in 2017 when you get the results that Denial was getting. Straight up.
Okay, that's pretty simple.
I mean, yeah, it's a mixture of things, but as far as I knew, or based on what I was told, or my understanding was, that they weren't paying them on time, and maybe they weren't paying them enough. And I'm surprised that they dropped them. I don't know how that worked, because I don't know if the contract was up. Maybe it was, and they just didn't renew, but it sounded like they just let go of them. So I'm not sure if that was because of bad press. Maybe people were starting to question, oh, why aren't you paying your Overwatch players? Or all right, we'll get rid of this. I don't know what Denial's deal is. I don't have any experience with their management or anything. So, but it seemed like it was a long time coming is where I'm going with that.
One thing that's worth elaborating too, though, is that for endemic orgs have a tough time in Overwatch right now, period, with things like Overwatch League coming out and just the immense amount of salary pressure going in. I think it's difficult for a org that is lower on the endemic scale. Like Denial is not working with the money that a TSM, a Cloud9, any of these orgs that you attribute to be really good or envious. Like they don't have that level of money. So to keep a team together with far less money in Overwatch when some other very established teams are still very hungry to pull on new players that have talent, it's difficult because the players are going to be knowing what their contemporaries are getting in pay. And if you can't match that pay or keep it somewhat in the ballpark, they're going to leave. And it doesn't matter really what the contract is. They're going to find a way of breaking that contract or at least making it very untenable for you as a sponsor. So it's a little bit unfortunate for teams that did get into Overwatch earlier, but it is, I guess, a promising sign for the game that you have this level of investment going on and this level of competition for skilled players.
Okay, let's see. One more. They want you to talk about the committee again. No, definitely not. Okay, May 24th. People are asking. First, more is asking new hero for the birthday. There's got to be something big on the birthday, and we were talking about event, but maybe a new hero announcement. You've been working on one, right? That's pretty far along.
I think it's likely. I mean, it's hard to say. I mean, it's one of those things where it could be a special event. It could be a new hero. I don't think they would rush out a new hero if it wasn't ready, but I think it was a recent update from Jeff where Jeff said that we actually have a new hero that's pretty far along. We're pretty happy with it, so on and so forth. So it would line up timeline-wise to release a new hero for Overwatch's anniversary.
Yeah,
but
that'd be great.
There's always things that could come up that could delay that, where they go, actually, guys, this hero is just not ready. No, we're not releasing it right now.
When's the next animated short, man? I feel like we're pretty far since the last one.
Maybe with a new hero.
Yeah, maybe. Yeah.
That said, though, I would consider PvE Uprising the equivalent in some weird way. I think it's more about getting the lore out there.
Yeah.
So if your story writers are on lore, but
yeah, gotcha.
I mean, Doomfist maybe. Doomfist type.
I think Doomfist is saved for BlizzCon. I'd be shocked.
You think BlizzCon?
No.
You don't
think
so?
I don't think so.
Dude, come on. You gotta save that for BlizzCon.
Why would you save that for BlizzCon when they already had the Doomfist stolen months ago?
Because it's all about
you can't steal it for 6 months and then bring it back. And
dude, that's what I was saying. It's like,
just kidding.
Do I have to remind you of the Sombra ARG, guys? I mean, yes, we can. We can do it. We can do that for a long time if we want.
Doomfist stole the Doomfist and then actually decided that he wanted to just do random shit on the internet and meme for 6 months before actually going back to being Doomfist. Like, no, I don't think that's gonna happen. And you're right. The Sombra ARG was a long tease, but I think the difference there is that Blizzard already said we learned some key lessons from the Sombra ARG. People were upset with how that went down. So I don't think Doomfist would be teased that long because it's a long time between May 2nd and BlizzCon in early November.
All right, I'll throw it out here. Unless there's some huge ass Overwatch League stuff there. I mean, we all know what BlizzCon's like. We know what the keynote's like. It's a contest between all of the departments to see who can get more hype from the audience and the crowd and the viewers.
I mean, Jeff should just get a wrestling ring.
Oh my God! Yes.
There it is. We're done here, boys.
Crap.
Soundquake is actually a luchador, and you get someone to come in a wrestling outfit from South America to wrestle Jeff.
Flame, you're just pandering to the Spazzo vote right now, dude. Anytime you mention Soundquake, that is...
I might have just made a lot of fans, actually. That was a great idea.
Soundquake is Spazzo's waifu, where he has named himself Soundquake in Pro Talk for ages. Anytime you talk about a new hero, he comes up with the idea Soundquake. And it does sound like a good hero, no pun intended. So,
man.
I really wasn't trying to make that pun.
All right, guys. Well, why don't we wrap up and do some shout-outs? Great having you guys on. Particularly fun having you guys go at it in terms of the committee. But ZP, any shout outs you want to do? Where can people find you?
Shout outs, as usual, find me Twitter at TempoZP. Definitely cast your vote, whoever you vote for. Democracy is your right as a USA Overwatch voter. Vote for the best people you think, and you get 3 votes, so you can also vote for Flame as well.
All right. Flame?
Yeah, I mean, same thing. I guess shout out to everyone who's helped me get here. And I've had a lot of really good, I don't know what the word is. I've had a really good experience with everybody just being very supportive. It's very fulfilling, I think. So that's awesome. But let's make NA Overwatch great again,
Let's make America great again. Not
at
NA
Matt
Overwatch.
Rod with a 0, by the way, because if you go to @Flame, you're gonna get something not Flame.
Is there somebody that has Flame? There's somebody surely has Flame, right?
Yeah, he came into my Twitch chat one day, tweeted out my picture, and then trolled the shit out of me for an hour.
Oh God, what a dick!
Get right.
He also owns @Booty or something, I think.
And
he tweeted out my Twitch stream from that account, and then I had a bunch of really weird people joining my Twitch chat. It was a really bad experience. Point being that someone does own that account, and it is a Twitter entrepreneur.
He's a Twitter squatter, basically.
Yeah, he is a Twitter squatter, but
got it.
I don't know what to do about that. We'll fix that.
I mean, did he offer to sell you the Twitter account?
No, he didn't even offer. He deleted all the tweets and then tweeted out one thing.
I think the real problem there, Flame, is that he went to your channel just this guy isn't going to pay me $1 billion for this Twitter channel. I'm just going to harass him for an hour and get my enjoyment that
I know, dude. It's he toyed with me a little bit. I was like, okay, man, whatever.
Oh, that's crazy. But I want to thank you guys for doing the show. Obviously, the two of you guys, everybody for watching. Thanks for sticking around after the the craziness I had. I'm so glad we made it through the whole thing because, man, I was afraid it was going to happen again. But you can tune in to or check out the VOD on youtube.com/ChanManV for this show or this episode or any of the old episodes that we have. And again, you can find the audio versions on iTunes and Google Play and SoundCloud. iTunes refreshes a little bit later, but the other ones actually refresh really quick. So you'll find those by tonight for sure. And follow the show's Twitter at the Overview GG. But that's going to be it, guys, this week for the overview. So for ZP, Flame, and myself, ChanManV, we'll see you next week. I don't have any music load up though, but we'll see you next time. Later.